Hi folks, Lez Graham here from Train for Life and also the Pet Gun Dog. I want to talk a little bit about the gaze and how we use the gaze in training our dogs, primarily gun dogs, but actually any dog really, and the importance of the gaze. So dogs communicate to each other using the gaze, whether it's looking at an item and getting the other dogs to look, or when they're out and about, something, they're focused on something, then what will happen is the dog beside it will also turn and focus. So the dog will turn its head and its eyes and really lock on to whatever it is that interests it. And they do it with us as well. So I can remember when Bart was young, taking him to the vets, and he'd sit there and wag his tail and the vet would go, "What do you want, Bart?" And he'd look straight at the sweetie jar on the vet's desk. And that was him communicating to her through the gaze what he wanted from her, what he wanted her to do, which was to give him a sweetie. So bearing this in mind, when I did my master's degree in 2011, that's when I completed my master's degree. Building up to that, so in 2010, I was looking at how dogs communicate through the gaze, and I did my whole master's degree on canine cognition, whether inherent communication would trump, if you like, trained communication. And I did it on gun dogs. So the whole experiment was around gun dogs in relation to following the point or following the gaze. So initially I was looking at whether gun dogs would follow the cross point, say, so get out as opposed to get out. But then as I started doing my research, I found that there was quite a bit of research on children and how children immediately before they developed pointing, so immediately before a child could point to something, they would use the gaze to communicate it. And we follow the gaze, as people, we follow the gaze. And so I started looking at how humans communicate with the gaze and also how dogs communicate with the gaze, and then put the two together. And so as part of my master's degree, what I did is I had 10 gun dogs, which were all trained in following the point. They'd all, most of them had worked. They'd done the Pet and Work and Gun Dog Organisation awards. A lot of them had done the Kennel Club Good Citizen Award. And so we're all really proficient in following the point, they get out using the arm signal. And so what I did is I set the experiment up so that we had 2 posts and then tennis balls, and the dogs had to either follow the point, so you would either go get out, or you would have the other hand behind your back, so it was a case of get out or get out, where you would turn your head and send them. And then the final test actually was crossing both, so it was arm out to one side, looking to the other side, gazing at the tennis ball and saying get out, and just seeing what happened. The dogs didn't have to do a retrieve. It wasn't a retrieving exercise at all. None of the handlers knew what I was going to be doing. They just knew that they were going to come and do some sort of experiment with a dog, that it wouldn't hurt them. And it was quite amazing, actually. So the dogs, when they came to following the gaze, they followed it. But the interesting thing was when we put the arm out and the gaze, so we give the dog mixed messages, if you like, the dogs followed the gaze. There was an equal number followed the gaze as did the point, which, considering all of the dogs were really proficient in following the gaze, in following the point, was really interesting. So I then started incorporating it into my training, and when the advanced book came out, the Advanced Pet Gun Dog book came out, I wrote about it, did a little bit in there. And I changed all of my techniques at that point. I was already using the gaze when I was sending a dog for a get on, but following the experiment took it to the next level. So everything about me was locked onto the dummy with the gaze, and the dog would follow my gaze. And likewise with the get out and the go back, I incorporated the gaze a lot in those 2 commands, and it's quite phenomenal, the changes. So all of the videos that I've done since have incorporated the gaze. So I've been using the gaze in training for 10 years, definitely 10, almost 11 years now. And it's quite phenomenal, really. And so you'll become more aware of how the dogs are communicating with each other. And as you'll see with the video from Spud and Dante, there's a very much a following of the gaze when they're communicating with each other. So it's so important to set a dog up correctly and to communicate in the way that they understand, whether that's weight distribution, body language, weight distribution and gaze. And if you can incorporate all of that into your training, especially when you do the more complicated exercises, then your dog will understand it so much quicker. So the experiment that I did, as I say, 2010, 2011, was groundbreaking stuff. It hadn't been used before. And it's just awesome. So have fun, have a play with the gaze. It's amazing. And just make sure you turn your whole head and not just your eyes. And then in time, you can just use your eyes to send your dog where you want it to go.